The plane went silent in the sky. All systems failed. The captain collapsed. Only the first officer remained, flying blind with no help. Until a quiet teenage girl walked into the cockpit and said 5 words that changed everything: "I know how to fly." Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. Sarah Mitchell sat in seat 23A, staring out the airplane window. She was 16 years old, traveling alone from Boston to Denver. Her black backpack held textbooks and a worn flight manual that belonged to her grandfather. The Boeing 757 cruised smoothly at 35,000 feet. Around her, passengers read, watched movies, and slept. Sarah did none of these things. She remained lost in painful memories. Her grandfather, Captain Thomas Mitchell, had been a pilot for 40 years. He flew fighter jets in the military, then commercial planes for major airlines. When Sarah was young, he took her to small airports every weekend. They sat in tiny propeller planes, and he taught her everything about flying. "Flying is not about the machine," he always said. "It is about understanding the sky, reading the wind, and staying calm when everything goes wrong." Sarah learned fast. By age 12, she could identify every instrument in a cockpit. By 13, she understood navigation without computers. By 14, she had logged over 200 hours in flight simulators and 50 hours of actual flight time in small aircraft. Her grandfather taught her old methods that modern pilots rarely used. Then, 2 years ago, everything changed. Her grandfather's small plane crashed during a storm. "Heart attack at the controls," investigators said. He died instantly. Sarah was not with him that day, but the loss destroyed her. She stopped talking after that. At school, she became the quiet girl who sat alone. She never raised her hand. She ate lunch by herself. Other students thought she was strange. They had no idea what knowledge lived inside her mind. The flight attendant approached. "Would you like something to drink, honey?" Sarah shook her head without looking up. The flight attendant smiled and moved on. This was normal for Sarah. She spoke through gestures and silence. Words felt too heavy. In her lap, hidden under a jacket, was her grandfather's old logbook. She had read it hundreds of times. Every flight he ever took was recorded there. Every challenge, every emergency, every lesson. Sarah had memorized it all. She touched the small pin on her jacket, her grandfather's pilot wings. She wore them every day, hidden under her clothes. They reminded her of what she lost and what she still wanted to become. The plane continued smoothly westward. Sarah had no idea that in 15 minutes, everything would change. She had no idea her silence was about to break in the most dramatic way possible. In the cockpit, Captain David Harrison and First Officer Jennifer Chin discussed the weather ahead. Both were experienced pilots with thousands of flight hours. The Boston to Denver route was routine. "Clear skies all the way," Jennifer said, checking the radar. Captain Harrison nodded. "Easy flight today." Every screen in the cockpit suddenly went black. The primary displays, navigation systems, communication radios, everything died at once. The cockpit went dark except for emergency lighting. "What the hell?" Jennifer grabbed the control yoke as the autopilot disconnected. Captain Harrison's hands moved quickly across the panel, flipping switches, checking breakers. "I have nothing. No displays, no radio, no navigation." "That's impossible," Jennifer said, but she knew it was true. The sophisticated glass cockpit had become useless. Captain Harrison took manual control. Without instruments, he had to fly by feel. He could see the horizon through the windscreen, but he had no idea about altitude, airspeed, fuel remaining, or position. "Try emergency radio," he ordered. Jennifer switched frequencies, pressed buttons. Nothing worked. "We're completely dark." No transponder either. Air traffic control cannot see us. Then Captain Harrison felt pain shoot through his left arm. Sharp, crushing pain that spread across his chest. He gasped, his grip on the yoke weakening. David? Jennifer saw his face go pale and sweaty. My chest, he managed to say. Cannot breathe properly. Jennifer's training kicked in. Stay calm. Deep breaths. But she knew what this might be. Heart attack at 35,000 feet with no electrical power and no way to call for help. Captain Harrison tried to maintain control, but the pain was overwhelming. His vision blurred. Jennifer, you have to take it. I cannot. He slumped forward in his seat. David. Jennifer grabbed the controls with both hands. She was now the only pilot, flying blind with no instruments, no navigation, and no way to communicate with the ground. In the cabin, passengers started noticing problems. Entertainment screens went black. Lights flickered. People looked around nervously. Flight attendant Maria Rodriguez picked up the intercom phone. Dead silence. She tried again. Nothing. Fear crept into her chest. She walked quickly to her colleague Robert. I cannot reach the cockpit. Intercom is dead. Robert tried his phone. Same result. This is not normal. Maria made a decision. She unlocked the cockpit door and knocked. No answer. She opened it slowly. What she saw froze her blood. Captain Harrison slumped unconscious in his seat. First Officer Chen flying alone, her face pale with terror, all the screens around her dark and dead. Captain Harrison collapsed, Jennifer said without taking her eyes off the windscreen. Possible heart attack. I am flying manually with no instruments. I need medical help for him and I need someone who knows navigation. Maria's voice shook. What can I do? Get the emergency medical kit. Check his pulse. And pray someone on this plane knows something about flying. Sarah heard the whispers spreading through the cabin. Something was very wrong. She watched Maria rush back from the cockpit with a medical kit, her professional mask completely gone. Is there a doctor on board? Maria called out urgently. Medical emergency in the cockpit. A man stood up. I am a nurse. I can help. Maria took him forward immediately. Sarah's mind raced. Medical emergency in the cockpit meant a pilot was down. Combined with the electrical failure, that meant only one pilot flying blind. Sarah closed her eyes and heard her grandfather's voice from years ago. If you ever find yourself in an emergency, Sarah, you have two choices. Stay silent and hope someone else fixes it, or speak up and use what you know. Your knowledge might save lives. Never let fear stop you from helping when it matters most. Sarah unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up. Her heart pounded. Her hands shook. But she walked toward the front of the cabin. Maria saw her approaching. Sweetie, please sit down. We have a situation. I know you have a situation, Sarah said, her voice quiet but clear. One pilot is unconscious. The other is flying manually without instruments. You have no radio, no navigation, no way to land safely. Maria stared at this teenage girl. How do you know that? My name is Sarah Mitchell. My grandfather was Captain Thomas Mitchell, military and commercial pilot for 40 years. He taught me to fly starting when I was 10. I have over 200 simulator hours and 50 hours of real flight time. I hold a student pilot certificate. I know how to fly this aircraft. I can help. Robert stepped forward. Maria, if there is any chance. Come with me, Maria said. The cockpit was cramped with the nurse working on Captain Harrison. Jennifer Chen was gripping the yoke with white knuckles, sweat running down her face. First Officer Chen, Maria said, this is Sarah Mitchell. She says she has pilot training. Jennifer barely glanced back. I do not have time for this. I am flying blind here. I can help you, Sarah said firmly. I know this aircraft. I know how to navigate without instruments. But I need to see what you are seeing. Jennifer made a split-second decision. Sit in the jump seat. Tell me what you know. Sarah moved to the small seat behind the pilots and looked out the windscreen. She studied the landscape below, the sun's position, the distant mountains. We are over Kansas, Sarah said immediately. That city below is Wichita. We are heading approximately 270 degrees west based on sun position and landscape. Denver is roughly 400 miles ahead. Jennifer checked the magnetic compass. You are right. But I cannot land in Denver blind. I do not know how to find the airport without navigation. The nurse spoke up. Captain Harrison's pulse is weak but steady. He needs a hospital immediately. Sarah's mind raced through options. First Officer Chen, how much fuel do we have? I have no way to know exactly. Maybe 2 hours based on flight time. Can you maintain altitude and heading? Yes, but for how long? I need to land somewhere. Sarah made her decision. Then you need to let me fly. Everyone in the cockpit turned to stare at her. What? Jennifer said. You are exhausted and terrified, Sarah said calmly. Your hands are shaking. You have never flown manually without instruments for this long. I have. My grandfather trained me for exactly this situation. I can navigate us to an airport and land this aircraft. But you have to trust me and you have to let me take the pilot seat. Jennifer wanted to refuse. Every regulation said no. But she looked at this teenage girl who spoke with absolute confidence, who had already proven she knew exactly what was happening, and who might be their only chance of survival. You are 16 years old, Jennifer said. Yes. And I have more manual flying experience than you do. My grandfather made me practice flying without instruments for hundreds of hours. He said modern pilots had forgotten how to really fly. Today, he was right. The nurse finished stabilizing Captain Harrison. He needs emergency care. Soon. Jennifer Chen made the hardest decision of her life. All right. Take the left seat. But I am right here watching everything you do. Sarah moved to the captain's chair. Her hands touched the controls, and suddenly she felt calm. This was what her grandfather had trained her for. This was why she had spent 2 years studying obsessively. She adjusted the seat, placed her hands on the yoke, and felt the aircraft respond to her touch. I have control, she said, using the formal pilot terminology. You have control, Jennifer confirmed, her voice shaking. Sarah's mind shifted into complete focus. She had dreamed about flying a commercial jet since she was a child. She never imagined her first time would be like this. First Officer Chen, I need you to monitor our magnetic compass and call out any heading changes, Sarah said. I also need you to watch my technique and correct me if I do anything dangerous. Understood, Jennifer said, amazed at how professional this teenager sounded. Sarah checked the mechanical instruments that still worked. Magnetic compass, standby attitude indicator, and pressure altimeter. Not much, but enough for a skilled pilot. She looked out at the landscape below and began calculating. Distance to Denver, wind direction based on cloud movement, fuel consumption estimated from engine sound. We cannot go to Denver, Sarah said. Too much traffic, too hard to find without navigation. But there is an alternative. What alternative? Jennifer asked. Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado Springs, about 60 miles south of Denver. Long military runways, less traffic, and I know the approach path. My grandfather took me there dozens of times. Maria spoke from behind them. How long until we get there? Sarah did rapid calculations in her head. Approximately 45 minutes at current speed and altitude. But we need to descend soon. We are burning fuel too fast up here. She reduced power slightly and began a gentle descent. Without instruments, she judged the descent rate by watching the ground rise and feeling the change in air pressure. Descending at approximately 500 feet per minute, Sarah said. Target altitude 15,000 feet. That keeps us above terrain but reduces fuel consumption. Jennifer watched in amazement. This girl flew like someone with decades of experience. Her movements were smooth, confident, and precise. How did your grandfather teach you all this? Jennifer asked. He believed technology makes pilots lazy, Sarah said, her eyes never leaving the windscreen. He said someday all the computers would fail and pilots would not know how to fly. He made me practice the old way. Paper maps, visual landmarks, dead reckoning navigation. He made me fly in simulators with all systems failed. He prepared me for exactly this. The plane descended through 20,000 feet. Sarah made small adjustments to heading, keeping them on course toward Colorado Springs. As they descended through 15,000 feet, the Rocky Mountains appeared on the horizon. Sarah felt a surge of recognition. She had flown this area many times with her grandfather. There, she pointed. That is Pikes Peak. The tall mountain standing alone. Colorado Springs is just east of it. Jennifer saw it too. How far? Maybe 20 miles. We start our approach now. Sarah turned the aircraft slightly left, lining up with where she knew Peterson Air Force Base would be. She reduced power more, beginning the descent toward landing. First Officer Chen, I need you to prepare for landing, Sarah said. When I tell you, lower the landing gear manually. There should be a backup system. Jennifer found the manual gear extension handle. Ready when you are. At 10,000 feet, Sarah spotted the airfield. Two long parallel runways, exactly where she expected them to be. There it is. Peterson Air Force Base. We want runway 17 left. The longer one. On the ground, air traffic controllers saw an unidentified aircraft approaching without radio contact. They activated emergency protocols, clearing the runway and alerting crash response. Sarah descended through 5,000 feet. Gear down now. Jennifer pulled the manual extension handle. They felt the gear lock into place. Gear down and locked, Jennifer confirmed. Sarah focused on the runway ahead. She had practiced this approach in simulators, but never in a real aircraft this size. Her hands were steady on the controls. Normal approach speed for this aircraft is 140 knots, Sarah said, talking through her process. I am estimating speed by engine sound and control feel. We are slightly fast but that is safer than too slow. She descended through 3,000 feet, then 2,000. The runway grew larger in the windscreen. Jennifer watched the altimeter. 1,000 feet. Sarah made final adjustments to alignment. The aircraft was heavy, different from the small planes she had trained in. But the principles were the same. Judge height by ground reference. Control descent with power. Keep wings level. 500 feet, Jennifer called out. The runway threshold passed beneath them. Sarah pulled power to idle and began the flare, pulling back gently on the yoke. The main wheels touched the pavement firmly but safely. Sarah deployed speed brakes and applied brakes. The aircraft slowed steadily. They rolled past the midpoint of the runway, still decelerating. Emergency vehicles raced alongside them. Finally, the aircraft came to a complete stop with 2,000 feet remaining. For a moment, the cockpit was silent except for both Sarah and Jennifer breathing heavily. You just landed a Boeing 757 without instruments, Jennifer whispered. A 16-year-old girl just landed a commercial jet. Sarah's hands were shaking now that the crisis was over. Is Captain Harrison okay? The nurse checked him. Stable. But he needs a hospital now. Emergency crews surrounded the aircraft within seconds. Paramedics rushed aboard to treat Captain Harrison. Passengers evacuated using mobile stairs, confused but safe. Sarah climbed out of the pilot's seat, her legs weak. She had just flown and landed a commercial aircraft. The reality of what she had done hit her all at once. Jennifer put a hand on her shoulder. You saved 189 lives today. Including mine, including Captain Harrison's. Do you understand that? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. My grandfather taught me. I just remembered everything he said. As Sarah emerged from the cockpit, passengers stared at her. This teenage girl had been flying the plane. Maria made an announcement. Everyone, please listen. Our captain suffered a medical emergency during flight. We also experienced complete electrical failure. This young woman, Sarah Mitchell, took control of the aircraft and landed us safely. She saved all of our lives. The cabin erupted in shocked murmurs. A businessman from economy class approached Sarah. You are just a kid. You flew this plane. Jennifer stepped forward. This young woman has more skill and knowledge than many pilots I know. She stayed calm when I was terrified. She navigated without instruments. She landed an aircraft she had never flown before. She is a hero. Within hours, the story spread worldwide. A 16-year-old girl had taken control of a commercial jet after the captain collapsed and complete electrical failure left the first officer flying blind. News crews arrived at Peterson Air Force Base. Reporters wanted to interview Sarah, but she was overwhelmed and exhausted. National Transportation Safety Board investigators examined the aircraft. They found that a catastrophic electrical failure had caused every system to go dark. The captain's heart attack was pure coincidence, but it created a double emergency that should have been impossible to survive. This type of complete system failure occurs maybe once in 50 million flights, the lead investigator said. Combined with losing the captain, the odds of landing safely were almost zero. What Miss Mitchell did was extraordinary. Sarah sat in a quiet room with her mother, who had rushed to Colorado Springs when she heard the news. Her mother held her tight, crying. I almost lost you, her mother whispered. I am okay, Mom. Grandpa taught me well. He would be so proud of you, baby. So incredibly proud. Captain Harrison recovered in the hospital. The heart attack was mild, and doctors said he would be fine. When he was told what happened, he asked to meet Sarah. She visited him the next day. He was sitting up in bed, looking weak but alive. Sarah Mitchell, he said. The girl who saved my life and my aircraft. Come here. Sarah approached nervously. I was wrong to doubt you, Harrison said. When you were in my cockpit, I thought you were just a kid. I had no idea who you really were. You have more skill than pilots I have flown with for years. Thank you for saving me and my passengers. I just did what my grandfather taught me, Sarah said softly. Your grandfather taught you well. He raised a true pilot. The weeks after the incident transformed Sarah's life. She appeared on news programs, received awards from aviation organizations, and was invited to speak at pilot conferences. Her high school suddenly celebrated her as a hero. Students who ignored her wanted to be her friend. Teachers saw her differently. But Sarah struggled with attention. She had been silent for so long that speaking publicly felt unnatural. One evening, First Officer Jennifer Chen visited Sarah at home. She brought a gift, a set of pilot wings from her own uniform. These are for you, Jennifer said. You earned them more than most people who wear them. You are a real pilot, Sarah. Age and certificates do not change that. Sarah accepted the wings with trembling hands. Thank you. I also came to ask you something, Jennifer continued. Would you be willing to help train pilots? The industry needs people who remember the old skills. You could teach what your grandfather taught you. Sarah hesitated. I am only 16. Why would anyone listen to me? Because you proved your knowledge when it mattered most. You saved lives using skills most pilots have forgotten. That makes you qualified to teach. Sarah thought about her grandfather. About all the hours he spent teaching her. About how his lessons had saved 189 people. Okay, she said. I will teach. For my grandfather. Sarah began visiting pilot training facilities, teaching navigation techniques that modern aviators had never learned. She showed them how to fly without GPS, how to navigate by landmarks, how to land without instruments. At first, experienced pilots were skeptical. A teenager teaching them? But when they learned she had actually landed a commercial jet in an emergency, they listened. Modern technology is wonderful, Sarah told a room full of pilots at one training session. But technology fails. When it does, you need to know how to fly with just your eyes, your hands, and your knowledge. That is what real flying is. She also spoke at schools, encouraging young people to pursue aviation and to never let others dismiss them because of their age. I spent 2 years being silent because I thought no one would listen to me, she told students. But when Flight 447 lost power and the captain collapsed, my knowledge mattered more than my age. Your knowledge matters too. Do not hide it. Share it. Use it. Let it make a difference. Sarah continued her own training. She earned her private pilot license at 17 and commercial license at 18. Airlines recruited her before she finished high school. At 19, she became the youngest commercial pilot in her airline's history. But she never forgot the lessons that mattered most, staying calm in crisis, understanding that technology serves pilots but does not replace them, and speaking up when lives depend on it. 5 years after Flight 447, Sarah attended a reunion of the passengers she had saved. They gathered at Peterson Air Force Base, at the very runway where she had landed the crippled aircraft. Many brought their families. Children who existed because their parents survived, spouses who still had their partners, parents who still had their children. Jennifer Chen, now a captain herself, spoke to the crowd. 5 years ago, I was terrified and alone in a dark cockpit. My captain was unconscious. I was flying blind. I thought we were all going to die. Then a 16-year-old girl walked into that cockpit and took control. She flew that aircraft better than I ever could have. She saved all of us. The crowd applauded. Sarah stood before them, no longer the frightened teenager but a confident young pilot. My grandfather used to say that knowledge without courage is useless, Sarah told them. He taught me everything about flying, but the most important lesson was this: when people need help and you have the knowledge to help them, you must act. You cannot let fear or doubt stop you. A woman approached with a young boy, maybe 7 years old. This is my son, Michael, the woman said, tears streaming. He was born 2 years after Flight 447. He exists because you saved his mother's life that day. I was pregnant and did not know it yet. You saved 2 lives, not just one. Sarah knelt before the boy. Hello, Michael. Are you really a pilot? He asked with wide eyes. Yes, I am. That is so cool. I want to be a pilot too. Sarah smiled and unpinned her grandfather's wings from her uniform. She placed them in the boy's hand. These belong to my grandfather. He taught me everything I know. Now I want you to have them. Study hard. Learn everything you can. And remember that being a pilot means helping people when they need you most. The boy clutched the wings like treasure. I promise I will. 10 years after Flight 447, Captain Sarah Mitchell flew regularly for a major airline. She was 26 years old, one of the youngest captains in commercial aviation. She kept Jennifer Chen's wings in her flight bag, along with the second set her grandfather had given her as a child. Before every flight, she touched them both, remembering. She continued teaching navigation workshops, insisting every pilot learn skills beyond computer systems. After 3 more incidents of electrical failure required manual navigation, airlines made her training mandatory. Sarah also started the Captain Thomas Mitchell Foundation, providing flight scholarships for young people. Her grandfather's name would inspire future generations. One day, a teenage girl attended one of Sarah's training sessions. She was quiet, sitting in the back, taking notes intensely. After class, she approached Sarah nervously. "Captain Mitchell. I am Emma. I am 15. My grandfather was a pilot and he died last year. I have been teaching myself to fly using his books and simulators. But everyone says I am too young, that I should wait. Did people say that to you?" Sarah looked at this girl and saw herself 10 years ago. Quiet, grieving, full of knowledge that no one took seriously. "Yes, they did," Sarah said. "They told me I was too young to know anything. They dismissed me because of my age. But when Flight 447 went dark and the captain collapsed, my age did not matter. Only my knowledge mattered. Only my courage mattered. So what should I do?" Emma asked. "Keep learning. Keep practicing. Build your knowledge until no one can deny it. And when the moment comes, and it will come, speak up. Use what you know. Save lives. That is what pilots do." Emma smiled for the first time. "Thank you, Captain Mitchell." As the girl left, Sarah thought about her grandfather. About the day she took the pilot's seat in Flight 447. About all the lives that continued because she refused to stay silent. The plane had gone silent in the sky. The captain had collapsed. The first officer was flying blind. And a quiet girl had taken the pilot's seat, found her courage, and brought everyone home safely. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her memory one last time: "Aviation does not care about your age, Sarah. It cares about knowledge, skill, and courage. If you have those 3 things, you can handle anything." She had proven him right. And now she would spend the rest of her life teaching others that same lesson. The quiet girl had become a voice for all the young people told they were too young to matter. She had shown the world that expertise comes in unexpected forms, that age does not determine capability, and that sometimes the most important thing we can do is refuse to be silent when lives depend on what we know. Captain Sarah Mitchell walked to her aircraft for another flight. She climbed into the left seat, the captain's seat, the pilot's seat, and prepared to take 170 passengers safely to their destination. This is what she was meant to do. This is what her grandfather had prepared her for. This is who she had become when she broke her silence and took control. The quiet girl who took the pilot's seat and changed everything. 25 years after Flight 447, Sarah Mitchell stood at her grandfather's grave with her twin daughters, both 8 years old. Each girl held a toy airplane in her hands. "Mommy, tell us the story again," said Lily, the older twin by 3 minutes. "About how you saved all those people," added Sophie. Sarah knelt between her daughters in the grass. The morning sun warmed their faces. "Your great-grandfather taught me that being a pilot means more than just flying. It means being ready when others need you most. Even when you are scared?" Lily asked. "Especially when you are scared," Sarah said softly. "The day I took the pilot's seat, I was terrified. But I heard great-grandpa's voice in my head telling me I could do it. His lessons saved 189 people that day." Sophie touched the pilot wings pinned to Sarah's jacket. "Will you teach us to fly too?" Sarah smiled through tears. "Yes, sweethearts. I will teach you everything he taught me. And someday, you will teach your children. That is how knowledge survives. That is how we honor the people we love." She stood and looked at the headstone: Captain Thomas Mitchell, 1950 to 2008, beloved grandfather and teacher. "I kept my promise, Grandpa," she whispered. I became the pilot you always knew I could be. I used everything you taught me. And now I am passing it forward, just like you wanted. A plane flew overhead, leaving white contrails across the blue sky. Sarah's daughters looked up in wonder, their eyes following the aircraft until it disappeared into the distance. One day, that will be us up there, Lily said with certainty. Yes, Sarah agreed. One day that will be you. And when your moment comes, when someone needs help and you have the knowledge to save them, you will not stay silent. You will speak up. You will act. You will be brave. The story of Flight 447 had become legend. It was taught in every aviation school as proof that age means nothing when knowledge and courage meet crisis. It reminded the world that heroes come in unexpected forms and that sometimes the quietest voice carries the most important message. But for Sarah, it was simpler than that. It was the day she stopped running from grief and started honoring it. It was when she learned that her grandfather's greatest gift was not just teaching her to fly, but teaching her to be brave enough to use what she knew. The quiet girl had taken the pilot's seat. And in doing so, she had changed not just one flight, but the entire future of aviation.